After nearly 20 years, a beloved farming experience is reborn. Welcome to your new fairy tale life in Fae Farm. Discover magical spells to grow crops. Cultivate crops as you cultivate a peaceful farm life. Expand your farm as you nurture crops. Scour the planet for materials. Set the stage for your adventure.
Plant flowers together.
A demo containing the opening days of your farm's first season will be available on Nintendo eShop. Welcome back to Forgotten Valley. Here, you'll manage a farm.
Ah, yes, we finally got a new big Nintendo Direct, the much anticipated, much expected September Direct yesterday that surely was a joy for you crop cultivators. And so I wanted to run down what I thought were some of the highlights today. Let's first address the big disappointment. There was absolutely no Labo news. I know, we're all devastated. I was hoping to finally get an update for my robot Labo armor. As you fellow Labo Chads already know, the chicks always want the Labo armor to stay on during sex, and it's, mine's getting pretty beat up. So I can only assume at this point they're holding off for a Labo 2.0 type deal for the next Nintendo system. Like, the current Switch is just, it's too pathetic. It can't handle the big Galaxy Brain ideas they're probably running through for Labo 2.0. I mean, surely with how Labo took the world by storm, we're going to get something new for it. Okay, in terms of getting a little bit more serious, this Direct did have, I thought it had some great stuff. And not only for those of you who like farming, seriously, I did enjoy this Direct quite a bit, but it was definitely one where the games weren't for everyone. A good amount of Japanese and RPG focus, but I don't think that stuff was the problem. I do think a problem with this Direct, and I've said this in the past ones as well, was like there was a lot of filler, the pacing seemed off, and that was largely because of so many rhythm. I think not enough people are pointing to all the rhythm games that were featured in this Direct, but also, of course, the amount of farming games in this thing. Man, it's already become a meme with this Direct, and even myself, while I was watching this live, when we got to like the third or fourth instance of a character whacking away at the ground, or a tree harvesting, I'm like, are we seriously, this is happening? It did almost feel a little bit like you were being trolled watching this thing live. And yeah, I get having a variety of stuff. Like, I enjoy these games as well. I'm excited for that Harvestella game, the one that has more like third-person action combat in it as well. But it's like, boys, showcasing more than two of these specific type of games in a single Direct, that's too much. And again, there were way more than two. I'll keep going. The cloud games, the Resident Evil stuff, these just feel like a slap in the face, in my opinion. Like, oh, the big new Resident Evil games, don't you wish you could have these on Switch? Oh, they're coming, but not really. I don't think that crap cloud games should even be featured in Directs at all. Upload them, give them their own little trailer, you can tweet about them, but do not put them in a Nintendo Direct. They don't deserve it. But yeah, I thought even taking out all of this filler, that there was plenty to love here overall in terms of bigger games. But just spending so much time on this other stuff brings the overall presentation down. And it's not like they needed more stuff to pad out the time. This thing was like over 40 minutes long. I think cutting a bunch of this stuff out and making it a tighter 30-minute presentation would have actually resulted in it being received better. I mean, just making these things longer for the sake of making them longer isn't necessarily a good thing. Not every game coming to the platform needs to be shown during a Direct, and certainly, I'll be honest, doesn't necessarily deserve to be shown. But let's get into what I thought were, in fact, the highlights. The show kicked off with a look at the next Fire Emblem game, Fire Emblem Engage. This game will feature a new mechanic that lets characters engage, become one, effectively perform fusions to make new characters. I think this is a pretty cool idea in terms of something that makes you want to explore different pairings of characters. If you're unfamiliar, a big part of these games already is coupling these characters together to grow their bonds and make them more effective in battle, and see little storylines and that play out between them. So this sort of builds on that gameplay-wise, which in that category, I think it looked great. Pretty standard Fire Emblem stuff besides this new mechanic. Visually, I think it looks fine. Character models mostly looked great. Environments and stuff, still not the best, but I gotta talk about this protagonist. And this is a problem I also had much less so in the last Warriors game, Three Hopes, right? Yeah. In that game, I didn't like at all the bright purple hair for the protagonist. I thought it was way too much, just distracting. And I get Fire Emblem characters, they tend to have wild hair colors and styles, but for the main character that I have to see in all of the cutscenes and that, I like them to be a little less crazy. And this game is dialing that up to like 11. This whole blue and red thing they've got going on with the hair, the outfit, eye color. I think this is easily the worst looking Fire Emblem like main hero protagonist, and possibly the worst looking Fire Emblem character ever. I get how this plays off the whole fusion vibe, but that doesn't make it any less awful to look at. Not saying this ruins the game or anything, but yeah, this seems to be a direction they're heading in that I'm just not a fan of. Still excited to play the game and all that, though, but I hope this doesn't continue, because I don't know how they would top this clown show. Keeping with that very Japanese vibe, I was hyped to see Fatal Frame, Mask of the Lunar Eclipse, is getting a Western release. Multi-platform, I believe, too. I saw someone say they saw a Steam listing for it, and that, which is great. Love this franchise. I'm kind of hoping more people give either this game or this franchise a chance, as survival horror, classic survival horror is kind of making a comeback. You know, Resident Evil, the games are going more the horror route than they were before, and we're getting so many remakes of, like, you know, the original Dead Space, Resident Evil 4, Alone in the Dark. I can't remember if that's going to be a remake, but there's like a new Alone in the Dark coming out. Because, yeah, if you haven't played these games, they're honestly, in my opinion, all really solid survival horror games. The second one in particular, that's like an all-time, like, top 10 survival horror game. So, yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on this. Also, in terms of the, you know, Japanese RPG vibe that I know isn't for everyone, Octopath Traveler 2 was something I certainly wasn't expecting. I'm a big simp for these, like, HD pixel art games. I'll admit it. I think they're just so nice to look at. And man, we are getting so many lately. We just got Triangle Strategy, which that's why I wouldn't have expected another announcement like this so soon. And also Live Alive, which I'm working on right now and is fantastic. I'm glad to see the games of this style kind of feel like an evolution of the Super Nintendo RPG era. Just continue to take off, and as long as they keep making them, I'm going to continue to buy them. Sticking with the idea of games I didn't expect to see, you Kirby kids. I get that you like to be well-fed. Okay, that's Kirby's whole thing. But when is enough enough? We got not one, but 2 Kirby games this year in 2022. So no, I was not expecting yet another coming early, very early next year, February 24th. Meaning that within a calendar year, that's 3 Kirby games. Yes, Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe was announced. Now, this was originally a Wii game, but right off the bat, I gotta say, at least from what I remember, I'll have to go back and look at some footage, this is not at all like some quick and dirty remaster report. Like, the whole art style looks totally different. I'm not too sure how I feel about this different direction in terms of the visuals. I think it still looks like an upgrade over the Wii version, certainly when you consider the game being sub-HD. But this, like, cel-shaded, thick outline style, it does kind of remind me of something that would be like on the 3DS. And again, not that like, you know, is a bad thing, but it seems like a weird choice, again, if you're going to take a Wii game and put a lot of work into redoing the visuals for the Switch, that you would go in this direction. Still, the key point for me when it comes to these Wii games coming over is just, you know, having them in HD. I think that's a good thing. And it is going to have extra content. They teased like a new robot copy ability and some of the mini games. If you're not familiar, this game is more multiplayer focused. Like, you have the 2D platforming stuff, but you can play it with 4 players simultaneously, and there are a lot of mini games and stuff that are also meant to be played with others. I love me some Kirby games, but we'll have to see when this comes out. I'm a little nervous about this being, a Wii game, a single Wii game, and them charging the full $60 price tag for it. I'm not crazy about that until maybe I learn more. Like, maybe there is a good amount to this whole deluxe aspect. Again, they are certainly going to be adding content. But I don't know, this visual direction isn't really, like, blowing me away. But it is wild to see that we're getting more Kirby games. And, I hope this game does end up being great, which means it sells well, and we just keep the Kirby train going. Like, that, I think, is hilarious and be fantastic. But yeah, something I'm definitely interested in. Considering what they showed and that price point, not totally blown away by it though. In terms of things I did expect, but still managed to somehow get completely wrong, we did get an update for the expansion pack in terms of stuff to keep people subscribed to it, but I thought it was pretty pathetic. They ran down a handful of more N64 games coming to the service. At first I thought like, oh, is this, they're going to do a big content drop, like a bunch of games, but then they showed the calendar, the release schedule, and it's like, whatever it was, like 5 more set for the rest of this year, and then they announced like a few more for 2023, and I'm like, ugh. Yeah, we're still just getting this drip feed of games. I just don't get how all this stuff is so slow. Still no Donkey Kong 64, and yeah, like myself, if you watch my prediction video, I was hoping for Game Boy and GBA games to get added. I guess better luck next year with that. I'm not trying to say, because I see people when I call this stuff pathetic or I say it's not good enough, people are like, oh, what, you don't like these games? You don't like Pilot Wings? You don't like the Mario parties? Like, no, obviously not. But it's like you're doing, I think, less than what the minimum should be for this service, especially when you're charging a decent penny for this. I mean, $50 a year for this expansion pack, especially with the Stadium games. That's one of the things I think pissed me off. Seeing Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2 both getting added, and it's like, if you had the Game Boy games on there, you could allow people to transport their Pokemon from the Game Boy Pokemon games into Stadium, and now that's something that's interesting. That's something that's enticing. But no, and it's still, this isn't asking for the moon. I know Nintendo people, especially with this stuff, the classic game support, your expectations are so low, they're at the Earth's core, but this just, in my opinion, shouldn't be okay. And maybe that stuff will come, like I said, maybe we will still get Game Boy games and be able to do this stuff, but it's when? This service has been around for a long time now. Don't give me this be patient crap, especially when they want you to pay $50 a year. Be patient. There was a pretty big surprise in here, though. Goldeneye is coming to the service with online play. I guess this is also coming to Xbox. They must have worked out the whole licensing nightmare with the movie rights and Rare, and then offered it up to Nintendo, which is awesome. It would be sad to see this game only on Xbox and not on Nintendo where it belongs. So I'm really glad that Microsoft Xbox team, they're making sure we get these games. Myself, I'm not subscribed to the expansion pack. I'm not paying for that crap. But I have Rare Replay, and it's going to be if you have Rare Replay, I guess you get the game for free. I also have Game Pass, so it's going to be easy for me to play this on the Xbox. And I will say, I am excited to play it again for nostalgia's sake, but this is not a game that holds up well, in my opinion. Because I guess the Xbox version, this has been one of the talks of the town is this game, because the Xbox version apparently won't have online multiplayer. So it's the company who owns Rare has at least whatever the game share of the rights are to this game. They're going to have a worse version, and because of Nintendo's emulation software, they can force the multiplayer into all these games, which is a benefit, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. I'm mostly interested in going through the campaign again, and maybe doing some local multiplayer when friends come over for that nostalgia. That's the only way I see myself really getting into the game. You have some buddies over, you're drinking in that, and play some old school GoldenEye. But I think for people, because a lot of people are hyping up this multiplayer, and again, I don't know if it's just a fanboy thing, oh, this is something we get and the Xbox kids don't, so I gotta make it a big deal. But yeah, people acting this is my game, GoldenEye, it's back, and I'm gonna dump so much time into it, in reality, many are going to play this online for like an hour and be done with it. I'm not trying to downplay it. I think it's fantastic that it's there. It's one of those old licensed games that isn't just lost to time, which preservation, you guys know I'm always a fan of that. So I'm very happy about this, but I think some people are getting a bit overzealous about that multiplayer. This game does not feel the same today as it did in the 90s, boys. I promise you that, and many of you, I think, are going to find that out. Which brings us to the appearance in this direct of the great Shigeru Miyamoto. Yeah, this Miyamoto section, boys. Talk about a roller coaster of emotions. He starts off this thing like, oh, I just wanted to give you an update on the Mario movie. We're still working on it. That's it. We have literally nothing to show, though. I 100% thought we'd get a trailer here. It is insane to me that this movie was officially announced a year ago, and we've still seen nothing. I mean, you couldn't even give us like a quick tease that maybe shows us the art style a little bit, just a few seconds, a poster even. I don't know, they said it's still coming out in the spring. The question is, how long are they going to wait, again, to show us anything? I don't think this is very reassuring, guys. Like, the fact that they're choosing to not show us anything, coupling that with the delay, I'm wondering if we're going to hear some stories, and this doesn't necessarily mean the movie's going to be bad, but, you know, because this worked out a lot for Sonic, and I'm wondering, could there be something like that going on? Like, was there some kind of core aspect, like design-wise, or maybe, you know, people like me have been hyping up, I want to hear that Chris Pratt voice, something that was significant that needed to be changed, and that's why not only was this thing delayed, but it's taking them so long to show us anything, because whatever they're changing is like a core piece of the whole movie. So I think hearing about the development of this movie after it releases may end up being more interesting than the movie itself. But he wasn't done there. After his non-update for the Mario movie, he's like, hey, do you guys remember Pikmin? You know, my ears perked up. I'm like, yeah, I remember. Well, make sure to check out the Pikmin mobile game. And he went into this really in-depth discussion about Pikmin Bloom. And, oh, you walk around and plant flowers. It's so great. Here's all the places I've planted flowers. And I'm just watching this like, really? This is what you brought Miyamoto to talk about? Give us, again, a non-update for the Mario movie and to shill some mobile crap? And I think this also was a big thing that kind of dragged down the event. Again, focusing so hard on a mobile game. And this also, you know, going off the farm thing, while this isn't, you know, a farming game, it's, you know, you're planting flowers and stuff like that. It's got a similar vibe. So at this point, I'm feeling lower than I ever thought I possibly could feel with Miyamoto on screen talking about Nintendo stuff. But then he's like, now for the main event. And holy shit. Pikmin 4. It's real. We got just a quick tease. He mentioned there's going to be a more third-person, over-the-shoulder type camera. Saw a screenshot of that, and that was it. Still, though, for me, this was massive. Pikmin certainly, again, it's one of these things. It's not a series for everyone, or certainly something that not everyone gets super hyped up about. But the story of this game, you know, it was back in 2015 when he said in an interview that Pikmin 4 is not only coming, but it's almost finished. So people were expecting this game to come out in the next year or two. And then it just sort of disappeared. There was speculation that it was canceled. But no, what apparently we didn't understand is by almost finished, he meant like it's 7 or 8 years away. So yeah, I thought this was huge seeing this game finally make an appearance. The fact that it is coming next year in 2023, which, I'll be honest, they should have shown us some gameplay. Like, especially after all the drama, if the game is coming next year, you can certainly show us more than, you know, a few seconds of, like, B-roll footage and a screenshot. After all this wait, this is kind of a similar, not as long, but like a similar Metroid Dread type story. Where it was like, oh, this thing, it's just, maybe, I guess it's never coming, so it just feels so good to have it finally come. I hope it's great, and I hope more people give a chance, because, yeah, these Pikmin games, they always end up being some of the best games on the consoles they show up for, so I'm super hyped for that. Again, when we talk about remasters and that, I think if this is a later in 2023 type release, it would be awesome to get like a Pikmin 1 and 2 remastered collection. before it releases. I know with how Nintendo does things, it's just, again, something that's crazy to me with the classic games, how they don't see the value in like, hey, why don't we let people play through Pikmin 1, 2, and 3 before 4 comes out? Why don't we let people play through all the 2D Metroids before Dread comes out? Like, they already have the GameCube emulation running on it with Super Mario Sunshine. I don't get it. Which, speaking of remastered GameCube games, we did not end up getting the heavily rumored Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD ports. I'm sure they'll still come at some point. In fact, this makes me wonder, when I did, my predictions video, I said if they're going to release each of these games at full price, $60 each, it seems like that'd be a lot to release both Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD between now and the Breath of the Wild sequel. We'd be talking about $180 in Zelda games over like just a 6-month period. So maybe that's why they're holding off on those. Like if they are going to charge full price on those, I thought it didn't really make sense to rush them out. Still hoping for some kind of combo set or a discounted price. And of course that leads us to the big Zelda announcement. Breath of the Wild 2 closed out the show and is no longer Breath of the Wild 2, a sequel to Breath of the Wild, as we finally got an official title for it. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom releases on May 12th, 2023, a bit later in the spring than I had expected. I'm sure the game will be great. What we saw here looked good, but what we saw was still very little. I am surprised a bit that we didn't get more of an in-depth showcase of gameplay. I expected, as I said, to learn a bit more about the story and have like some narration, whether it's on Numa or whoever, going into and talking about like the new gameplay features and that. Another thing, it seems odd. Like, this is still a little ways out, like 8 months, but with how long we've waited since the first announcement, I feel like they could have given us more here. Like, finally getting the game title was nice, but especially because this is what closed out the show. You closed out the show with a game we've seen multiple times already. So yeah, I thought this super brief trailer for a game, again, we've known about and seen multiple times, it wasn't that exciting to me. Overall, though, I thought this was a really good direct, like I said. I think how you feel about it is largely going to depend on whether or not you're into many of these types of games that were announced. I think there was some big stuff here, but much of it was very specific. Certainly this could have used, I'll say, something with more widespread appeal. The Kirby kind of fits into there, but even still, that's not like technically a totally new game. I think a new Mario, like a Mario Odyssey sequel, or like I said in my predictions video, what I wanted was a new 3D Donkey Kong. Something like that would have fit really nicely into all this, and I think one big game like that that has the super broad appeal would have turned this around for many people who are being negative towards it. But still, a lot of good stuff that I'm excited for. I'd also assume that we'll have another direct, like the first quarter of 2023, that details more of what we can expect deeper into next year, and maybe that's when we'll get the big Zelda gameplay blowout. It's one of those things, because I'll say one more thing with Zelda. While I would have liked to see more gameplay in that, it's also a game that doesn't really need it. Like, for many games, this might be kind of a red flag for me, but I just don't see it being possible that this is like, not a great game. Especially when they were able to use like so much like the assets in that from the original Breath of the Wild and just like build this game on top of it. I think they should, at least with the time they've had, and again, that advantage, be able to make like just a super awesome game. But they know people are excited about it. They're going to buy it. Any little thing, detail is going to be big. Like, again, just telling us the title was a big deal for people. So yeah, anyway, with that, this video is a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on the latest Nintendo Direct in the comments. Did you enjoy it? And what did you think were the highlights, the lowlights? Are you ready to get out there and do some farming, cultivate some crops? As always, I'm the Shy Guy, Johnny Zakari, and thanks for watching.